Welcome to Moving Panels One Shot. We're going to have a short little nerdy conversation. And joining me today is returning guest host and long time friend of mine, Mr. Chad Smith. How are you, Chad?
Pretty good, man. How about you?
I am a little uneasy after what you and I have just experienced. So back when Chad and I reviewed the Dark Knight trilogy, if you haven't listened to it, go back in the archives and give that one a listen. Great deep dive into the entire trilogy. A little bit longer of an episode, but well worth it. But while reviewing that, we both discovered that neither one of us had seen the Joaquin Phoenix, Todd Phillips directed Joker. And so we decided at that moment we would hold off watching it until we could both watch it around the same time. And then we're jumping on to record right now to give you our initial reaction. So both of us have watched it within the last 24 hours. And now we're going to give our initial reaction. This is not a full review episode like we do on the show. This is a one shot. We're going to save a full episode for down the road once we can both process and do our research to find some background stuff, and we'll save that for later. So this is just going to be an off-the-cuff, what did we think of the movie Joker? Chad, I'll let you give your first statements.
Well, I wasn't sure that I could get out of bed to record a podcast after that, so it was it's a pretty depressing movie. It has watch. Definitely. Yeah, it definitely grew on me with a little bit, as the overnight time away from it. At first, to be 100% honest with you, I was like, what are we going to talk about? This just made me feel terrible.
Yeah.
And kind of didn't know how to process that. Man, I was a little bit shocked at how I was in conflict with everybody who had reviewed it so well. It was this acclaimed movie, and at first, it did not make much sense to me. It seemed piecemeal, and I didn't understand. It really is something you kind of have to sit with and let kind of stew with you a little bit to get it. And a day into thinking about it, I don't know. I'm pretty impressed. I don't know. What were your initial thoughts?
Well, and I want to go ahead and put this out here. So huge spoiler warning here. We will probably talk about things if you haven't seen the movie. I know it's been out for a while, but again, neither one of us had seen it up until this point. And so huge spoiler warnings. I'm kind of in the same boat as you. When the movie started off, I was like, okay, well, this is kind of just a really, depressing movie. We're just watching this guy whose life is just horrible, and he's got obviously this mental problem, but it's kind of sad and pathetic, which also tore me as the superhero comic book guy going, wait, is this movie going to make us feel bad for the Joker? Is it going to make us feel sympathy for the Joker?
Yeah.
It totally doesn't by the end.
Yeah.
you do not feel for him by the end. At the beginning, yes. Arthur Fleck, you feel so bad for that guy, and you wish things would go better for that guy. But as soon as he embraces becoming Joker, that is all gone.
Yeah. I still feel totally conflicted in the sense that I think we talked about this. It's been a while since we recorded that episode, but I think I was mentioning in the Dark Knight trilogy episode that I don't want a backstory to the Joker. And I think part of that is exactly what you're saying, because anything traumatic enough to develop the Joker is something that you just don't want to see a human being go through. So I think there's kind of an innate understanding that was going to be a terrible movie to watch. And I still am not convinced, and I find myself mentally doing a little gymnastics to kind of get out of this being the Joker. There's been some fan theories thrown out there that this is a different universe or dimension that will get that maybe resolved a little bit with the Flash movie. Even Warner Brothers was quick to say that this is a completely standalone movie. So I've been doing a little bit of soul searching in the sense that I don't want this to be the Joker that we see in other projects, and so I can kind of detach myself a little bit in that sense. Because even with what you were saying, even by the end when he totally is enveloped in this character, you still just got to feel terrible for the awful series of events that brought him to that, and it's a hard tale to watch. It really is.
Yeah, I think with my again, initial reaction is I think that they take care of some of that in the reveal of his, I guess you'd say, girlfriend, and kind of giving that idea of he has been insane the entire time.
Right, yeah.
That there is no sympathy or empathy or whatever you want to say to this character. That it has been insane the entire time. And just even with that reveal that his girlfriend and him actually never talked and never had any of those moments and all of that. And then with the ease that he suffocates his mother, you just realize he has been insane this entire time. He is a sociopath. He is a psychopath.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. He's a sociopath. To back up to the girlfriend thing, I am still wrestling with this. Did he kill her and the child?
That I question that as well, because I found it from a movie viewing aspect. They show her find him in the apartment, and then they have the big reveal, and then he does the gun to the head symbol with his fingers, and then the next thing you see is him walking out of the room.
Well, her putting her hand to her mouth.
Yes.
And then, boop, he's leaving. So she didn't call the cops.
Hold on. They then repeat at the end of the movie with the psychiatrist in in Arkham, where they're talking. I don't remember exactly what he says in that scene, but then it shows him walking out. But we do get the bloody footprints as he's walking out that time. So it does make you wonder, did he kill them?
Yeah. Yeah, that one was probably the hardest part of that movie to me, actually. Because there's a kid in there and innocent woman otherwise. And you touched on it a little bit, just this being watching it as a movie and kind of a study in film. I do think it's brilliantly made, despite my comic book nerdiness not liking a lot of it. I don't. The Joker has never, in 80 years of existence, had a name, and so Arthur Fleck. Correct me if I'm wrong. I can't pinpoint a single other time. Arthur Fleck was made up for this movie.
Yes.
He's never called that ever before. No. And so, even that I don't like. I don't like him to be a human in that sense. But man, like the movie is really well made. The whole insanity thing, because you're insane with him as a viewer for a little while. Because it really, at first you notice the cuts and you know when he's having a daydream. The whole thing with Maury in the beginning, you're like, this is clearly a daydream. And it zaps back to him in his living room. Cool, he's daydreaming about it. Yeah. The further it gets into the movie, they don't give you those cues. You're just, did I watch reality? Did he go on a date with this young lady? What just happened? And it doesn't get resolved until much later, and it's brilliant. You go through the middle of the movie muddling in his insanity, and so that part I really enjoy. As a movie, I like Joker, even though it's a very difficult watch.
Well, and we go again to did he kill the girlfriend and the child? In that same breath, you've got where he kills the one coworker, but he lets the other coworker go because, as he says, you were the only one who was good to me.
Yeah.
And the fact that he didn't even have a relationship with this neighbor, this girlfriend, which side is she on?
Yeah, no kidding. Because I lean towards that he murdered her. I just don't see him walking out of there with zero consequences. You know what I mean? Maybe he did. I don't know.
But again, the coworker, I'm trying to think of his name, but the little guy, I mean, he very easily could have called the cops as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that one's closer to the end, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, he leaves the apartment to go to
ready for the show.
That.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you almost can make the argument that Gary does call the cops, and that's why they find him while he's leaving his building and headed towards the show. So maybe Gary did call the police. You don't know. Maybe he was just petrified into thinking that this psychopath was going to murder him. So, yeah, man, you leave so much going. Did what was the other character's name that he does kill? Randall. You wonder, did that scene earlier where Randall is nice to him and gives him the gun, is that real? Did Arthur Fleck steal the gun and has blamed this all in his head on Randall? Like, there's so much of it that is just kind of, it's so trippy, and where, where does the sequence of events happen? And I think that's a great explanation of who the Joker is. I think that character just goes through life in a perpetual version of that, not really knowing what or why he's doing anything. So I think that part was cool. And so I think the writer and the director clearly had a good grasp on the character in that sense, even though very little of it came from the source material.
Yeah, I'm not going to, again, I'm going to keep sticking to that girlfriend thing, because that was just a mic drop for me when you found that out. I'm not going to lie. I did go in thinking, okay, this psychological, I'm reading all those cues about psychological, there's going to be something here. And part of me almost thought they would go a Norman Bates route, and you would end up finding out that his mother wasn't actually alive.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until, they're pulling her out of the apartment, into the ambulance, that I go, okay, well, no, that's not it. And then, of course, they completely get me with the girlfriend. And so that part just shocked me. But going to the comic book aspect, what were your thoughts of intertwining it with Thomas Wayne and the moment he had with Bruce? And what about the pain in the butt jerk Alfred was?
I could see that Alfred growing up. I mean, he's a grown man at that point, but aging into maturity to be the Alfred that we know. I don't have as much problem with Alfred. Man, Thomas Wayne is not a good dude. No. Like he is not the shining example you see in Batman Begins and some of the other material. Not a great guy. That one was kind of hard to swallow as a Batman comic book fan. I didn't care for that. I kind of enjoyed the little bit of bizarre interactions with a young Bruce Wayne meeting, a guy who, in theory, 20 years from now is going to be his arch nemesis. Like, that was kind of interesting. I don't know. I wouldn't call it compelling or groundbreaking or anything, but
yeah, I had a problem with that scene. How old do you think Bruce was?
11. I don't know.
When you were 11 years old, would you have just let a man put his fingers
in your mouth
and just stand there while he manipulated your face?
Probably not. It was definitely an awkward moment for sure.
Yeah. Especially knowing that you're on an opposite side of a gate, so all you really have to do is take a step back. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that watching that too. It definitely was a stylistic moment. You have to kind of just give the artist a little bit of leeway there. I don't know. I'm with you though, as far as I have a problem with this movie connected to the comic books that I know. I will say again, I thought that they capture the deep who the Joker is very coolly, but there were a lot of things. Thomas Wayne being just a huge turd, he's not a nice guy at all. You have that.
Again, neither was
Wayne,
Alfred.
you don't get her at all. Yeah, Alfred. Nothing there to tell you that Bruce is a very bright kid to let a stranger stick his fingers in his mouth. Just that portion of it's a little weird. I don't really care for the Joker having an origin story, even though this isn't the first time that we've seen any origin story. There's definitely some stuff, and I will say, in a nod to the comics, without doing any research like we were talking about, I was looking for things that I could pick out of the comics, and really the only thing that I could just off the cuff do was he was a struggling comic in The Killing Joke. But he's married. He's not living with his mom, stuff like. So there are differences, but I did think that there was a little bit of a nod to the comics in that, and you see the same thing again in the '90s animated Batman series. The Joker began, his career, but in both of those, I'm trying to remember The Killing Joke. I hope I don't butcher this and ruin my fan credibility, but I'm pretty sure in both of those you have a chemical impetus for him becoming the villain, the Joker. It's not a progression of madness like it is in this movie.
Yeah. It's kind of going off of that. What did you think about the characteristic, the trait, whatever you want to say, of giving him the condition to where he laughed at the wrong moments?
So that was confusing, to be honest. I liked the performance. I like Joaquin Phoenix, his crazy laugh, but giving it this kind of its own little insane tick. I don't know. I didn't really buy that, and they even point to that a little bit. There was that meta moment when he's got the cops there, and he doesn't even answer the question when they're trying to get him to say that it's not a real condition.
Yeah, because they even talk about the boss showing him his card, and they even wondered, like, is that just part of your act?
Yeah, I think it was an excuse. I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking this, but part of me thinks that his mom gave him those cards to just kind of give him a little bit of an anchor in his insanity when he's around other people. Because I don't think he's laughing at nothing. I think he's laughing at some sadistic thing he's seeing, and his detachment from humanity, and his being a raging sociopath. So again, maybe I'm totally overthinking this, but I could see his sweet and also insane mother, telling him that he's got this condition, and here, you need to show this to people when you're having one of your laughing episodes. And I think he knows that, though. I think Arthur Fleck knows that, and that's why he won't actually answer the cops. That's why he says, "Well, what do you think?" as he walks away.
Well, and you actually saying that made me think about the bus scene where he's playing with the little kid, and then the mom snaps at him, and he starts laughing. Part of me is now looking at that scene thinking, is he thinking about what he wants to do to her? And that's what's making him laugh?
Yeah, that's kind of my thought process with that. That's why I think his mom and her own delusional not understanding gave him this cop-out for when those things are happening. Because she clearly didn't want to deal with his insanity either, for obvious reasons. But so I think there was a whole lot of crazy going on there. And I don't think it's an actual condition. I think that's just more of his insanity.
So let's jump to the mom and her insanity. What did you think when they initially gave the thought that perhaps Arthur was the illegitimate son of Thomas Wayne?
Oh, man. They set it up really well because they give you the little bit of believable. They've already painted Thomas Wayne as a little bit of a jerk. So you kind of go, yeah, I can see it. So there is definitely a moment you're like, yeah, this Thomas Wayne could have messed around a little. So there is that. It's a super interesting thought if the reason that the Joker can never kill Batman is because he, in some bizarre corner of his brain, thinks that there's a possibility that Batman is his brother and he doesn't want to kill his brother.
And Laurie Strode.
Yeah. So it's definitely an interesting take on it. I don't know that there's clearly no evidence from the comics of that I know anything about, anyways. So
It
I
did
don't know.
remind me, though, again, going back to when we reviewed The Dark Knight, it did take me back, though, to the comic book storyline where Bane believes that he is the brother of Bruce
Yeah.
Wayne.
Yep. Yeah, no, that's that. I hadn't thought about that one in conjecture to in combination with the Joker movie. Man, it's a lot to pull apart. Like as with the more we talk, it's just
Yeah.
more stuff coming up.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. Man, as a comic book movie, it's so twisted because I like the movie a lot. Like if it
Yeah.
was its own standalone horror movie, I'm totally into it. But as a movie of something that I love in Batman, I don't know. It definitely brings up some interesting questions, though. You know, has Batman heard about this? Batman has Bruce Wayne in the future heard about this? And that's one of the reasons he won't kill the Joker, because there's this 1 in 1,000 possibility that it is his brother. That sort of like, I don't know.
Yeah, his only surviving relative. Yeah.
Yeah, it's well, I mean, Bruce Wayne probably could have DNA tested him by this point. He seems to be a pretty clever guy, you know.
Yeah.
so maybe not. Maybe that's a little too far, but it's definitely interesting.
So I agree. If you separate the comic book aspect from it, amazing movie. You start putting the comic book aspect into it, it muddies it a little bit. But let me ask your thoughts of the tie-in at the end with the Joker and the riot and everything leading to the death of Thomas and Martha Wayne.
Well, for one, total honesty, I was sitting here going, even in a Batman adjacent movie where we get 8 to 12-year-old Bruce Wayne, we still have to watch the origin of Batman. So you cannot make a Gotham-based movie and not kill
Thomas and Martha Wayne.
Yeah, it's no good for them. I don't know. That was kind of an interesting twist. I like it better than I liked Tim Burton's take on it, where it actually is, the Joker who killed him earlier, and that sort of stuff. So it's definitely interesting. I kind of liked the through string in the movie of the building of the Joker's army as the masks become more and more prevalent, but it's always the same mask, and that was a very stylized mask from the comic books. That wasn't a random clown mask they chose, that sort of thing. So that was kind of cool. And he's got this pre-made army at the end of this to unleash on Gotham. So his rise was very interesting. I still think it's an interesting take. I just don't think it meshes all that well with the comic book. And there's just things that, as a fan, I don't want to have seen. So
I agree with you. Real quick, thoughts on Robert De Niro's character?
How was that guy in comedy? Like, I kind of thought it was a cool. I'm looking for a word here, but I thought it was a really cool homage, because clearly Taxi Driver definitely affected the aesthetic of this movie and also the insanity of the movie. There's several parallels here, all that sort of stuff. So you get De Niro to play a character in it. That's pretty cool. They didn't give you much of that character. You just see him being kind of this showbiz jerk, which I guess that's all you needed.
So nice. But he's then so nice to Arthur, not in the fantasy sequence, but when Arthur is actually going to be on the show,
when he's in the green room,
dressing room.
Yeah.
He's so nice. He goes, "Yeah, sure, I'll call you Joker. It's a great name, And
maybe I read that a little different than you. I felt like it was more placating than nice. I didn't think there was a genuine niceness there. I feel like he wanted the bit, and he's given in. Where the producer clearly is recognizing that this guy is insane and maybe we shouldn't do this.
So you tied in the Taxi Driver connection there with Robert De Niro, and that's probably where most people's going to go. Very, very famous Robert De Niro role. Are you familiar with The King of Comedy?
Yeah, it's been a long, long time since I've seen it, but yeah.
So what about that connection? Because in The King of Comedy, Robert De Niro plays a comedian who is not a successful comedian, but he wants to be, and it drives him to the point of kidnapping someone, kidnapping his idol.
Yeah.
Whereas, and here you got Arthur killing his idol.
Yeah, did you think it was going to wind up like that? Did that movie inform your take on this, and that you thought that he would kidnap him or assault him, or did you see the similarity in the change of how he viewed his idol?
It didn't change anything, because I straight up, from the moment he has that fantasy sequence at the beginning, I was like, okay, he's going to kill Robert De Niro at the end of this movie. Now, how much of that was also based off of which movie was it? There's an animated movie in which the Joker goes on Conan O'Brien's talk show and actually kills Conan O'Brien. And so I was like, okay, I'm already used to the fact that that's going to happen.
He kills talk show hosts, yeah.
He kills talk show hosts. So I knew that was immediately going to happen, but again, me being kind of the movie buff that I am, I had to think, okay, was there the Taxi Driver connection, the King of Comedy connection? Was that a tie-in to the story? Was it a tie-in to just the casting of Robert De Niro? I couldn't help but think of some of that stuff.
I think it affected all of the things you just mentioned. It clearly affected the aesthetic, because both of those movies, Taxi Driver and The King of Comedy, are very much in that time period, very gritty New York, all that sort of stuff. So it very much had to do with the look and style of the movie. The casting of De Niro could not have been a mistake at that point. Like, I just cannot believe that those were completely separate thoughts. So, no, I think you're definitely onto something. I hadn't put together The King of Comedy. It's been a long, long time since I've seen that movie, but yeah, a lot of parallels.
All right. Well, anything else you can think of? Or I think we pretty much, we've exhausted at least our initial reactions. Because like you said, the more we talk about it, the more each of us are thinking of stuff. And obviously we'll sit down, both of us will do our research. We'll try to find some comic book connections that maybe weren't initially realized by watching it, and we'll see what we can find. And Chad and I will both return to do a full Moving Panels episode. But anything else you got for this one shot?
No, just need to get some good sleep after this. Tossing and turning last night.
If you can.
All right.
Well, there you have it. There's something for you to consider. We do both highly recommend at least viewing this movie as a movie. Even if you can separate the comic book nature from it, I think we're both agreeing. See it if you haven't seen it already. So thank you, Chad. Please leave us a positive review on Apple Podcast. Like, subscribe, follow us on your favorite podcast platform, and follow us on social media. We're posting all the time at Moving Panels on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. That one I'm not posting as much, but I'm getting there. If you have any thoughts you'd like to share directly with us, or you want to suggest a topic for the show, you can email us at movingpanels@gmail.com. Thanks again, Chad, for joining me. I look forward to another great conversation and even a more in-depth into the comic connections and all with Joker. But for now, for Moving Panels, I'm Laramie Wells, and I'll see you on the other side of the page.
Hello movie viewers and fellow movie lovers. My name is Tim Williams and I'm the creator and host of Movie Views Presents the 80s Flick Flashback Podcast. See, I love the 80s and I have a great appreciation and nostalgic passion for the classic 80s flicks that birthed my love for movies and ultimately helped shape my childhood. On each episode, I'll discuss, with a special guest co-host of course, a different film from the 1980s. We'll share memories, favorite characters, iconic scenes, and even share some behind-the-scenes stories along the way. We'll discuss famous blockbusters like Raiders of the Lost Ark, Coming to America, Ghostbusters, Dirty Dancing, Top Gun, Die Hard, and many, many more, as well as some other cult classics and even lesser known flicks we discovered on cable TV or the now defunct video rental stores. Remember those? No matter what 80s flick we choose to talk about, we'll always have a good time, so come and check us out. You can find the 80s Flick Flashback podcast on major podcasting platforms like Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor, and more. Be sure to subscribe or follow so you don't miss a single episode. Once again, I'm Tim Williams, and I hope you'll join me for the next 80s Flick Flashback.